Hey everyone, Chris here from Real Rideshare Stories. On this channel we do a lot of different things within the rideshare industry, so if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. But before we get started, if you have crazy Uber Lyft experience, whether you're a passenger or a driver, record it, send it my way, and maybe we could feature you on the channel. So as we're continuing our Always Drive Sober week-long campaign to raise awareness to help stop drinking and driving altogether, I have an interview with a special guest, Chelsea, who you've seen on the channel through some of our parody videos. And she's talking about a couple of stories that she had when it came to drinking and driving and things like that. So here you go. Check it out. All right, so I am joined here with Chelsea. She has a YouTube channel. It is called Mind, Body, and Soul with Chel. So it's a lot of
spirit, but close enough.
Or mind, body, spirit with Chel.
Close.
So make sure to go over there and subscribe to her channel as she is starting her YouTube journey. She's also my girlfriend, so thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, we're gonna kind of talk about a couple of stories that you have dealing with drinking and driving, kind of the takeaways that you've had with it. So I thank you for coming on. And, you know, again, this is the podcast studio where I have a podcast. So it works when we're talking with other people. So yeah, let's get started. So first off, you have a story from when you were younger, about 18, 19. And you were involved in a ride where drinking and driving was involved, and the person that was driving ended up getting arrested for it. So why don't you take me back to that and kind of talk about, you know, maybe what led into that, what was going on, and then just overall everything.
So we were out to dinner that one night, and everyone was drinking, and I was probably one of the only people that was sober in the car. And we were driving back to the apartment where they lived, and he was going, I believe, like 50 in a 30 speed zone.
Okay.
And I remember before we had gotten in the car, I was like, that little thing in the back of my mind was like, oh, you know, I should probably drive. But I was too scared to ask because it was a nicer car. It was more of a race car type of car. I don't know. I'm awful with cars. I don't even know what, I don't know what it's
I mean,
called.
it's not important.
No idea. But anyways, I just remember having that feeling of like, I should have driven. And I kept like, my stomach was in knots the whole entire ride back.
Okay, so how old was this person who was driving? Do you know? Or do you remember?
He was in his later 30s. Now,
do you recall or remember about how much that they had to drink or he had to drink?
He had a lot at the time, but we didn't. He probably, near the end of it, he was starting to sober up somewhat, but they drank a lot that night.
Okay.
Before we left.
So like you were thinking, I mean, obviously you said you didn't have anything to drink.
Right.
You don't drink too often, but you do have occasional glass of wine in that.
Yes.
But yeah, why, I mean, just because it was a nicer car, why didn't you say something?
Because at the time, I thought it wasn't my place, and I thought he was okay at the time until he started driving after that point.
Mm-hmm. So and then what was going on?
And then all I remember...
No. I mean, like at that point, you said at that point. So like when
like
he
I thought
was
he was
driving,
like at that point when he was driving, he seemed okay, but then he wasn't okay, obviously.
Swerving,
okay. Right? He started to swerve, and I remember being in the back car, like freaking out, and everyone else was.
How many people were in the car?
It was one. There's 3 of us in the car.
3? Okay.
3 of us.
So driver and 2, you.
No, 4. Sorry, there's 4 of us.
So driver, 2 other people, and yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so you're freaking out, but at any point did you think that you should say pull over? I want to drive because I'm sober.
But by the time I thought something of that, that's when he got pulled over by the cops.
So obviously being 18 and younger, or 19 or whatever, however old you were, and he was, you said mid late 30s.
Right.
Obviously that and a guy versus a girl, and I don't want to get into the sexist things here, but it's a power struggle,
Right.
really, because you have a 18-year-old girl who says, "Hey, you're not able to drive, you shouldn't drive," and I understand where you probably would be like feeling something but not wanting to say it because of that, and you're maybe rationalizing it because of the nicer car,
Right.
but the fact that he was twice the age, and that probably played a lot into it. Now, so I can't fault you at that, but now, now you know better. So like looking back on it, if you were in a similar situation as you were then, would there be anything different at that point?
Yes, I wouldn't have gotten in the car.
Why would you? Why wouldn't you just have taken the keys?
True. But I guess in that certain situation, I guess I would have taken the keys. But other than that, I feel like he should have called someone else.
Yeah, but if you're 100% sober, then drive.
Right.
And that's the point. Now he's getting pulled over and the cops are, probably doing sobriety tests.
Right.
And all that. What was going through your mind? What were you thinking?
I was scared to death because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I know I wouldn't be in trouble because I wasn't the one driving and drinking. So I knew that I was going to be okay in that sense, but I was more worried about his mental state at that point.
What do you mean?
Like, I didn't know through the breathalyzer, like, how intoxicated he truly was.
What was the number? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
Well over the legal limit?
Right. Now,
he was swerving and all that stuff. Was there any notable memories or anything that you had during that entire ride?
I guess the feeling of like he's gonna be pulled over. Like I kept thinking he's gonna end up being pulled over. I just had this wicked feeling the entire time, like this sick feeling like he's gonna get pulled over. Something's gonna happen because I don't know. It was just intuitive feeling, and the next thing you know, he gets pulled over. So
but you weren't. Were you worried about like getting into an accident?
I was worried about my safety for sure.
Okay.
It was a scary moment, but in that moment, I felt a lot of adrenaline going through. So it felt like everything around me was in slow motion, especially with the cop lights going off and stuff, So it was really weird. It was a very weird thing for me.
Let's go to another time when you were out drinking and didn't have a plan.
Nope.
Now, normally you have a plan.
Right.
Normally when we go out or you're going out or something, somebody's at least the DD,
right,
or going to use, either a cab or Uber and Lyft now. But when they weren't in the area, it was much different. But yeah, so you were drinking one night.
Yes, I was.
Why don't you tell what happened there?
So I went to a brewing company with a couple of friends, had too many beers, and at the time I didn't want to wake up my mother to come and get me, so I knew that you were around and I gave you a call because I didn't want to drive intoxicated.
No, and that's
right.
The best decision that you could have made was not get behind the wheel.
Right.
After drinking.
Because anyone in my family has always said to me, if I'm out drinking and I need a ride, to call them. So, it goes for anyone.
Most people do.
Right.
And, the problem is a lot of people think that they're okay when they go out on the road and they can make it home and they're not that bad. Or they sobered up and, they might look like they're sober from the outside for a couple of minutes, because sometimes the body, can do some strange things that you don't necessarily know. But that's why we always say that if you have even a drink or two, that you should be, either using Uber or Lyft, calling a cab, phoning a friend or family member, or having just a DD in general. And then rotating that DD.
Right.
So then everybody gets to at least go out, have some fun, while the other one's not. But yeah, so you called me. I don't even remember what time it was. It was like, 1 a.m. or something?
Something like that.
And I think I was just going to sleep or something, or just before. Like I was just
something. I don't remember what happened. Right.
And you call me at 1 a.m. And I'm like, Well, hello. Like I was probably, I think I was out of it for a little bit, for a minute or so. And you're like, come get
Weren't you
me.
at a dinner or something? A late night dinner? And
No,
you're like,
I was in bed already.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, because it was like 1 a.m.
Okay. Well, whatever. Regardless, you ended
But-
up showing up.
Yeah,
I remember
no,
you
and then it
demanding
was-
me what to do, telling me what to do. Take the keys out of the ignition and sit in the passenger seat and lock your doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no, actually, that's. I'm glad you brought that up because
Right.
I forgot to bring that up. Even sitting in your car in the driver's seat with the keys in the ignition, they can, even though you're not moving, even though the car's parked, they can still get you for DWI.
Right.
So that's a big thing. So if people don't realize that, and you're waiting for a ride or you're waiting for somebody to come and get you or whatever it might be, do not sit in the driver's seat
Right.
with the keys in reach.
Right.
You know, put the keys somewhere else. Put them in the trunk. Put them in something so you are
Hide
not.
it.
Yeah. So
Hide
they're
'em.
not within reach, and then
Right.
sit in the passenger seat. And at least to do it that way. So if anything ever happens or anybody comes, like police officer, they're not going to nab you for it.
Right.
So that's yeah. So when I tell you that's the reason
Yeah.
why.
Even though I wasn't prepared, I at least got help. So
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
No, that's good, and it is good.
Right.
And I'm glad you called me because when I picked you up, you were passed out in the in the passenger seat. And
Yes.
obviously couldn't be able to do it. But yeah,
Right.
it was I mean, it was a good drive for me. It was about 20 minutes away. So,
Right.
but I still show up. I'm not going to
know.
not. But yeah, it was a good decision on your part, and that was probably one of the only times where maybe you didn't have a decision, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So now, I just want to say thank you for participating and sharing your experiences. But the big takeaways, what would you tell people out there who are either watching this right now or listening, if they're just like having in the background? What would you recommend people in the situation, not necessarily where you call it DD, because that's just a smart decision all around, but
Right.
at least in the story that happened when you were in a car where somebody got pulled over?
To not get in the car first off and take the keys away from the person. That's a big learning point for me because I could have died in the car. There could have been many different scenarios being played out. So it's just make sure that your people that are around you are sober enough or sober period to drive, and just not get in the car at all.
Well, those are good points. The only thing I would say too would be, it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter if
Right.
you're a small little girl, or whoever you are. If you feel that you are going to be unsafe, if somebody else is going to be unsafe by getting behind the wheel because they think that they're going to be okay, speak up and say something. And if you're the sober one, what if something did happen where there was an accident and maybe you were okay, but how would you feel if and looking back on it, that you were 100% sober and you could have done something but didn't because of whatever reason that happened, and they got into an accident and really injured somebody else or even
Right.
killed them? How would you feel about yourself knowing that you had an opportunity to stop that?
I would not feel great about myself at all. I'd probably
Yeah,
carry that guilt with me for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah, that would play
Right.
absolute havoc even on me too.
Right.
100%. So the big thing is, to anybody who is listening and watching, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter the other person. It doesn't matter how nice the car is, whatever it is. If it's their car and they've been drinking, you haven't been, stand up and say something. That's the big thing.
Right.
Stand up, say something. Just don't allow anybody to get behind the wheel who had even a drink or two. It doesn't really matter, because
Right.
if you think you're okay, chances are you're not, and you might be only okay for a few minutes, and then once things start setting in, it's a different scenario.
Right.
When the room gets dizzy, or in this case, the road starts getting dizzy because you can't see straight.
Right.
But yeah, speak up, say something, and take the keys and make sure everybody gets home safe, at least in a situation where there's one person who's sober. Now, if everybody's been drinking, then yes, calling a friend, calling a family member, calling Uber or Lyft and ordering one, or calling a taxi, anything to make sure that person or the party that's in that group does not get behind the wheel and think that they can, because they feel like they're sober, they feel like they're fine. That's not the right thing to do. All right. Any last things to add, Chelsea?
I just want to add, I ended up having to go to the police station. He was in there pretty much almost all night. So that kind of really put things into perspective for me. Even though I wasn't the one who was behind bars at the moment, it's pretty life-changing to be there. So, yeah.
Now, real quick, did they take you in there too, or
no?
But not into the jail cell, obviously.
No. It just being in there, the presence of being in there was enough, just to be in there.
What did they do once they arrested him? Did they impound the car, or did
one of the police officers drove the car to the house because it was right down the street? We were literally almost right to the house.
Okay.
So he pulled it in the driveway, and then his girlfriend, when she was sober, we all went there afterwards.
Okay, gotcha.
So we waited a couple of hours, and then we got to go. I made sure she was good to go before going.
Okay.
So yeah, that was good times.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be scary nonetheless.
Right.
Because, anything can happen.
Right.
At any point in time. And luckily, it was just getting pulled over and arrested.
Right.
Luckily.
Right.
Because, it's very easy for somebody to see an animal swerve, go into the other side of traffic and hit somebody. Anything could have happened,
Right.
Pedestrian, same exact thing. Anything could have happened. So, hopefully that was a rude awakening for them. For him especially.
Oh,
and
it was.
Hopefully
sure.
He's learned from his mistakes.
I'm sure he has. And I'm still friends with this person, by the way. So,
well, hopefully he's learned from his mistakes.
Right.
And hopefully you've learned to also stand up and say, look, you can't do it. Give me the keys. I don't care how sober you think you are. Give me the keys because I haven't had anything to drink.
Right.
So hopefully you learned that too.
I did.
All right. But thank you for coming on, sharing your story. Again, this is the Always Drive Sober week-long campaign that we're doing to raise awareness, to use services like Uber and Lyft, to call a cab, to call a friend or a family member. No matter what time it is, it doesn't matter. And also having a DD. All those things can help stop drinking and driving at 100%. And that's exactly what it should be. There should be no such thing as drinking and driving anymore. So again, thank you. Sure. If you want to check out Chelsea's channel and give a quick plug about it.
Oh my goodness. So I was raised very holistically with wellness and all these alternatives and stuff. So I just talk about my experiences and, my little tips and tricks.
So one tip is if you get a headache, you can take lavender.
Or peppermint right on the temples.
What's good for hangovers?
What's good for hangovers? Peppermint.
Peppermint. All right, there's another thing. So if you guys go out and have a good time, take some peppermint for your hangover and drink some water.
You actually inhale it. Like if you have the oil, you actually inhale, like smell it. And
there you go.
It wakes you right up.
There you go. Peppermint works a lot of things. So if you're hungover, there you go. But the night before getting home, again, call an Uber or Lyft, call a cab, call a friend or a family member, or have a designated driver, or the person who's sober. Stand up, say, no, you can't have the keys. I'm driving home, and get everybody home safe. All right. With that being said, as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, and we'll see you next time.